everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Lisa Alastuey, and on this channel you will find a variety of inspirational and informational videos. So if that sounds good to you and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. My guest today is a returning guest, Aaron Clarey. He is a very popular YouTube podcaster. He talks on a variety of topics, including men's issues, dating, economy, and a whole host of other things. And so please check out his YouTube channel that just reached over 100,000 subscribers. And I highly recommend you guys subscribe to his channel. That would be awesome. So welcome to the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. So today we're going to talk about a really common, popular subject that we both like, and that is on hiking. And you wrote a book called On the Menu, and I believe hiking is on the menu.
Well, everything's on the menu, but that is like the filet mignon. That's like what you really want on the menu. But yeah, hiking is one of my favorite things to do in life, and I'd recommend it be other people's favorite thing to do as well.
Yes. So real quick, you are also an author. Can you just tell the audience a little bit about what On the Menu is?
Well, The Menu it's a kind of a tragic, sad book, but a necessary one because the short version is Morgan Stanley came out with a report called Rise of the She Economy. And in that study, they found out that about 45% of women will not be married or have children by 2030, which forces kind of an existential problem crisis on men because if half the women roughly aren't getting married, that means half the men aren't getting married. And since human relationships and family and love was everything that gave people purpose and meaning in life in the past, half the people aren't going to have that. And so it forces this kind of important question like, well, what are you going to do in your life without the opposite sex? So I came up with a book called The Menu, Life Without the Opposite Sex. And it is made to look like a menu in a restaurant. And there's appetizers and drinks and cocktails. And then there's the men's menu and the ladies' menu and shareables and desserts. And so it just goes through everything you can do in life in the 1 in 2 chance maybe you're never going to get married or have someone there by your side. So it delves a little bit more into existential philosophy and the importance of being an individual as well. But it's kind of a list of everything fun to do in life.
Yes. Okay, so great. So let's talk about hiking, which is one of my personal hobbies and interests, and I know that is of yours. Why do you hike?
It's a grudge, a childhood grudge. I grew up in Milwaukee, and there's really no hiking. I mean, there's some rivers and streams. And my dad got to work when he was a young man at Glacier National Park, so he had all these amazing pictures of Glacier National Park, and I'd never seen a mountain. I'd seen some cows, but I'd never seen no mountains. And I always wanted to go out west and hike and adventure. And it just the vast nothing, like you could get lost, no one would find you, and just be able to climb a mountain. And starting at about the age of 30, finally had the time and the money to start seriously hiking and doing some mountain climbs. And I did. And every dream I had and expectation of a child was met or exceeded. I mean, you learn about altitude quickness pretty quick. If it's your first time, but no, and it's just become a passion of my life ever since.
Yes. So mine too. I've always been fond of just being, as a child, being outside, walking barefoot. I remember doing that a lot of times as a kid, just instinctively knowing that I wanted to be in the sun. I wanted fresh air. I wanted to be grounded. I wanted to be close to the earth. And there's just some primitive natural instincts for us to get back to that, especially in our modern society that works against it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I also, more modernly, I do need to escape. Now, I was lucky enough to live in Wyoming for a year, and there's no people or civilization at all. So you just walk out in the mountains there in your backyard and you go. But living here, I'm in Vegas now in South Dakota during winter. Yeah, you got to get out. And I'd rather be lost in the mountains. I'd rather be hiking along a creek, trying to find some lost waterfall people haven't found. Than sitting in traffic, going to work, or anything that really has to do with urban modern day society.
Yes. Unfortunately, I live in the third largest city right now. That's Houston, Texas. And it is overstimulating for me. It is traffic. It is noise pollution. It is air pollution. It's not ideal. It is where I am employed, but one day I do plan to get more in nature and out of the city because it's not really feeding my soul, I should say.
It's not fit for human consumption or living.
Hmm. Yes, yes. I think cities are the first metaverses. We talk about, this new metaverse, but anytime we put a whole bunch of people in one small space, it is a very stressful way of living.
Yeah. Well, and I know economically that's how humanity has evolved. I mean, it became economic, efficient. This is where, grain would be put. It's always on a river because that was the main means of transportation. And as much as I uh, rue having to wait until I was 30 to actually escape the city and go hiking or be in a place where I could go hiking all the time to my heart's content, you got to keep in mind most people never left 20 miles of their original place they were born for most of human existence. And so today, especially with air travel and cars, you don't have to be stuck in Kansas. You don't have to be stuck in Ohio. You can hop on a plane, fly out to wherever, and just see some amazing and beautiful sights that for most of human history the option was never there.
Yes, most definitely. We're definitely living in advantage times. I know for me, being in the city and being kind of like locked in, I also seek out the parks to feel normal, just to get away from the concrete jungle that I'm living in so that I can feel some of that nature. So I know where all the good parks are in Houston, and that's where you'll find me usually in my free time.
Have you exhausted all the park? Because I totally exhausted all the Twin Cities. Like I did, it got boring after a while. Like I know, like the back of my hand.
Yes, yes, I do get a little bit bored with it. Absolutely. I've lived here, over 15 years now. So I do know that the park's like the back of my hand, but it does help when you're
Mm,
living in an urban setting.
mm.
Are there any other benefits to hiking that you find other than
Oh,
escapism from modern life?
well, I mean, yeah, you're alone. I don't know about you, but most people, I know maybe this happens to you, but when I ask someone if they want to go hiking, it's usually a joyful occasion and a friendly offer. And a lot of my friends think I'm trying to kill them. And that is not the case. And so I have a hard time finding people that like to go hiking with me. I do occasionally will go with a meetup group, and their skill level varies. It depends. Um, but yeah, I it can be a fun activity when you get a bunch of people together that are equivalent to your level, whether that's a beginner or an advanced. So it's fun to go hiking with other people. It's also cool just to do it by yourself. I know in Vegas, I am really starting to enjoy desert hiking, where you are Moses in the desert, man. You are left alone, and then you just listen to podcasts, and that's it. And then you come back to civilization. So I think there's almost a meditative aspect to it. Obviously, the health. My heart rate is in the 50s, resting heart rate, and it'll keep the pounds off. But I would say the main thing for me is like the adventure, which is becoming harder and harder, especially when you're a kid. Like you don't know what's over the hill, you don't know north, south, east, and west. But if you put yourself way out there, like some of the more remote parts of Wyoming or Utah, there's a little bit of, whoa, I don't have cell phone reception. I got to hike 20 miles this way. I got to get there before this and that. I mean, do I have enough water? Not that you put yourself in danger, but there is this sense of adventure, especially if you're taking on a particularly lengthy hike or a place you
Mhm.
don't know. That's become a little bit less frequent, not only because you hike more, you learn more, and figure out where you are, but boy, there's fewer and fewer spots where you don't have cell phone reception. And as long as I've been on a mountain now, of any significant height, you just grab your phone, you'll probably get reception, and you'll know exactly your GPS coordinates of where you got to go. So, not that I like getting lost, but there is that it's dwindling where, like, boy, I don't know where I am, and I don't care. And you can truly not know, oh, yeah, Moab is 15 miles that way. You don't know that for sure, but that's another thing. The wandering I really enjoyed in my younger days.
Yes, yes. There's lots of physical and mental benefits. Speaking on the physical, for me, it never feels like exercise because I enjoy it
Right.
so much. Whereas if I had to walk 5 miles on a treadmill, I'd be like, ugh. But 5 miles in a national park, I have just pure joy.
You're just starting. That's just like you're just starting the initial stages of the hike at that time.
Yeah, you just can't duplicate it. It's just a wonderful environment for yourself physically, like you talked about, for your physical health, but also mentally. A lot of times, if you're feeling down, depressed, anxious, just time getting in that green therapy and that nature therapy, it is the
Mhm.
best therapy, I think.
Well, and also I think you do have to be alone and you need to unplug from social media. And there's no better way because especially now, especially Americans are you go 5 miles in, you won't see anyone. More or less, because most people are not in that good a shape. I remember me and my buddy, we did this hike. It was up on a mountain ridge, and he didn't check the weather before. And so there was snow, it was windy, and it was like 20 degrees. But it was all right. It was like being kids sledding. But it was funny how we started out at the trailhead. There were a fair amount of cars there. We got to like kind of the first intersection. You could see some footprints and people were still there. And as we kept going further and further up the trail, there were less and less footprints in the snow. And we were relying on these footprints to figure out where the trail was because it was snowed over. And soon we ran out of footprints. Like, okay, I have no idea where we are. And but yeah, the exercise usually is daunting to the average person, and
Mm.
you could usually get out and get away from people if you want.
Yes, yes. Another trend we're seeing because of social media and people wanting to get that Instagram shot is that a lot of these parks now are overrun with people. But you
Hmm.
make a good point that, yeah, they're just there for the shot or the first couple miles. And if you do kind of branch out, you'll get into the beauty by yourself.
Right, right. And unfortunately, I don't know. Have you ever done much of Utah, like Zion or
Yes,
Moab?
we're going to talk about that.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, all right. But I remember I missed the recession so much, the Great Recession. It was great. No one could
Mm.
afford to travel. It was like, oh, all these parks are mine. They're mine exclusively. There was
Mm.
no wait. You didn't have to do a ticket or a lottery, and you could just go up and down. And now, more modernly, the economy recovered, or maybe I don't know. People are
You got to
just
have a
not looking.
reservation.
You got to have a reservation, and it's crowded.
Mhm.
And in some of the more popular hikes. So yeah, I've kind of shifted my strategy from national parks to national forests,
Mm.
where the tourists don't go because they're unaware of the national forests and the hikes they're in.
Oh, that is a good tip. Awesome,
Mhm.
awesome. But let's talk about tips since
Mhm.
we're talking about this. What would be some hiking tips you would give to people?
Don't get lost. That'd probably be my first rule. Like,
Tell somebody where you're going, when you're going to expect to be
yeah,
back.
I suppose. Yeah, I mean, depending on the hike, like if you're going to do like a one-way hike where they drop you off at one spot and you're going to the other. I mean, obviously, if someone drops you off, they know you're doing that hike. Sign in on the backcountry thing because you never know when you're going to run into a mountain lion, which I have, and it's not
Mhm.
fun. So make sure people know where you are. I would say more modernly, bring a cell phone, even though it's cheating, sort of. But if you get in an emergency, you want to be able to reach out and get people. If you want to go really full safety, get one of them satellite phones. But
Mm.
I mean, you'd have to be hiking the Alaskan wilderness, I think, before you have to worry about that.
Yes.
Lots of water, the right gear, check the weather. Don't like, I think it's going to be a great day at 9,000 feet above sea level. It's like, nah, you might want to check it anyway. And
Yes.
then, yeah, I don't know really. I just go and do it, and don't be afraid. I'd say that'd be the one thing.
Mhm.
I joke about it, but it kind of is a little depressing. Where I have a good friend, Chris Beckloff, and he came out. And we did Angels Landing at Zion, and it's a challenging hike, but
Mhm.
nothing a 30 then 35-year-old man couldn't handle. And now he always talks about the time I tried to kill him on Death Mountain, and I'm like, okay, I didn't try to kill you. It's Angels Landing, it's not Death Mountain. um don't be intimidated, like go out and hike.
Mhm.
And for those of you who are regular hikers, you're trying to get your buddies in there, don't take them on these painful hikes. But yeah, you guys are missing out on a lot playing these video games, being on social media, watching TV. Not to
Mhm.
say don't enjoy a good show, but you're really missing out on some really good stuff in life. It could definitely add a very nice and enjoyable chapter in your life if you don't let it intimidate you.
Yes, yes. And I mean, the resources available now than just 30,
Oh,
40 years ago. I mean, at your fingertip, you can Google these places and see how awesome and beautiful they are and plan for it. Like the information is there. It's just now taking it and putting it into a wonderful hike memory.
Oh yeah, all trails. You almost can't get lost now with all trails and different. I forget the other app that I have on my Avenza. It's really hard for you to get lost. I remember the days you had to get like topographical maps and print them off on YouTube and strategize, and there was
Yeah.
no car that took a picture of it for you. And you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I got to make sure I'm going between this crevice and that cliff. And you had to do a little bit more planning. Now, assuming you're anywhere near the internet, you could go grab your phone, download all trails, and it will
Mhm.
show you. It's like playing a Pokemon game. Kind of some of that adventuring I talked about that was it's no longer there.
Yes, yes. And another good hiking tip you touched on was the wildlife. And depending where you go, you're going to have to contend with possible bears. You might need to take a bear spray. You
Mhm.
might have to contend with biting squirrels. What other wildlife might people need to watch out for?
Well, mountain lions for sure, especially
Mhm.
if you're out west. And thankfully, mountain lions tend to leave humans alone, but not always. And I don't know what
Coyotes.
coyotes. Yes, coyotes. Wolves, wolf pack, obviously, but I haven't ran into those.
Hmm.
Um, but the coyotes can hunt as packs. I always carry a gun when I'm going out by myself. I even
Snakes.
have, yeah, I have a hat where I sewed on eyes, big bright blue eyes on the back of it,
Oh,
because mountain
wow.
lions like to come up from behind, and so this kind of makes them think they're being watched. What else? Yeah, snakes and
Hmm.
scorpions and brown recluse spiders. If you're sitting down, and be aware they don't have they got rattlesnakes
Hmm.
in Nevada. They don't have rattlesnakes in, I don't know,
Hmm.
Upper Michigan. So
In
kind of know
Texas, we
that.
have them.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, don't pick up rocks and dig around with bare hand. I mean, kind of
Yeah.
obvious stuff, but you could be 5, 10 miles in on a hike. You get
Hmm.
bit by a rattlesnake. It's going to be a miserable 10 miles back. Absolutely
Hmm.
miserable. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
One good little tip I think if you are in certain areas is get those little neck gaiters you can put on your tennis shoes to kind of protect your ankles and protect anything from getting in your shoes
Mm,
or getting bit.
mm. Yeah, I thankfully, knock on wood, I haven't had any troubles. I've ran into different creatures. Now you go
Yeah.
to Glacier National or Alaska. The whole point is to see bears at a distance. I've
Yeah.
seen a herd of elk in Wyoming. I've seen a moose. Um, the trick is to just not get close and personal with them. So a lot of times, it may be annoying where you see some younger millennial kids playing their boombox or the cell phone really loud while
Mm,
they're hiking. Well, that does in the wilderness that keeps bears away. A lot of people will hike with a bell on a stick or just have
mm,
some bells to not spook animals. South Dakota buffalo, they're a wild buffalo. You don't want to spook
mhm.
them. So there's measures and precautions you can take, usually that aren't too overbearing. But yeah,
Yes.
just be able to kill whatever wants to kill you first, and scare everything away with noise if you have to.
I have a t-shirt from Jackson Hole, Wyoming that says, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, except for bears. Bears will kill
Except for bears.
you."
Yeah, bears will kill you. Yeah.
Um, speaking of this, obviously pack a first aid kit, just like you can get a little miniature one to put in your backpack. That's what I would also recommend, just in case some of these things happen where you get injured on the trail.
Mm. I'd say duct tape in case you got to make a
Duct
splint.
tape solves it all.
Duct, yeah, it is. It's pretty, or some rope. I mean, because I go hiking a lot by myself, and so what the biggest risk is you breaking or spraining a leg or an ankle or something. That's your biggest risk. I haven't really had
Mhm.
that much trouble with wildlife, and I'm always sitting there thinking like, okay, how would I? What could be a very simple 10-mile hike with very little elevation gain, all of a sudden becomes a real chore if you're down to one leg and you didn't bring any kind of thing to put a stint on, and now you got to grab a big stick and use that as a crutch. So you can make do with what's out in the forest. Maybe you're not in the
Yeah.
forest. Maybe you're in the desert. There ain't no sticks.
Yep.
So you kind of, duct tape. Yeah, good. I'd say that's probably in my backpack.
Another good tip, because with hiking, you're going to have to deal with elevation gain and descent.
Hmm.
And so, hiking poles, a good pair of trekking hiking poles, and utilizing those is another really good tip.
Right, right. I don't use them because I'm still
You
not
don't?
that old yet. No, I'm like I refuse. I was in the southern end of Canyonlands National Park, and it was like early April, and
Mm.
all the retired boomers with their camper vans and their trailers and all that. They're there and they all had their hiking poles. I'm like, I'm not that old yet. Nope, not that old. Not yet. Maybe when I'm 60, then maybe I'll get them, but I'm not going to do the poles yet, just yet.
Yes, yes. I will admit, I will use them sometimes on the descent because it does alleviate some of the knee pain. If you're not used to it and you're not conditioned for going down, you're going to
Mhm.
feel it in your knees, especially if you're older.
Yeah. Well, and that's another thing for anyone beginning. There's this one hike I love to do in my kind of my backyard called Black Mountain, and it's a pretty slow incline, but then the last third of a mile, it just shoots straight up. And I've had three friends now who can make it to the top no problem. It's going down because it's so steep, and they didn't tire out their legs going up. They tired them out going down, and then they're limping the rest of the way. So yeah, don't be tackling no. You don't want to be scrambling or going down steep descents unless you
Hmm.
kind of practice a little bit before.
Hmm. What types of foods do you take when you go hiking?
None. I mean, if I'm going on a long one, I'll bring like a protein bar or something like that. But usually it's water. I'm kind of a pansy when it comes to hiking. I hate camping.
Hmm. Me too.
So I gotta get out and back. Now I might leave at 4 a.m. and get
Hmm.
back at midnight or whatever, but I just hate carrying the extra gear and equipment.
Mm.
And usually I want to get there as fast and back as fast as possible. So I'll usually just bring water or Gatorade or kind of a mix
Mhm,
between the two. If I know it's going to be a longer one, I will bring some kind of food.
mhm.
But usually I like to be back in my nice warm bed by about 9:30 at night and in my pajamas. I don't want to be carrying a pot and oh here's some meat. No, I don't. I want
Mm.
to enjoy the hike, get back and go to bed.
Yes, yes. So, do you carry a backpack when you go, or a fanny pack, or what do you
I
do?
carry a backpack, yeah. In
Yeah.
part because if you are attacked from behind, I ran into a big mountain lion. I'm like, okay, we got to change our strategy. And there, this is a huge. I was like, whoa. So I have a backpack in case I'm ever attacked from behind. It's just easiest. I know some people do camel packs if they're just carrying water.
Mhm.
I'm not doing it for competition or anything like that. I have some really serious friends who are way better at than me, and they got everything. I'll just throw like a Gatorade or two in the backpack and off I go.
Okay. And I would highly recommend as a tip that if you have a backpack, get the ones that have the waist belt because it will
Mm.
take some of the weight off of your back and redistribute it around the hips. And that's helpful if you are carrying a lot of gear. Other tips, any other tips that you would give?
If you are in a state that allows it, I have a chest carry like right on my
Mm.
chest for a gun. That way, it's not on your side hurting you or anything like that.
Mhm.
Um, the weather, definitely that. It's more just like go have fun. I don't want to make it sound like a safety, like your teacher. Oh, the dangers of hiking. It's like, well, get out and go do it and
Yep.
learn about it along the way. No, they're really. I mean, yeah, have your phone. That should solve most of it.
Mhm.
Um, don't go at night unless you're going to do a nighttime hike, which
Have
is
your
is
get you one of those little headlamps
yeah,
that
again one
you
of those things. I've done it before, and it can be cool, especially if
Mhm.
there's a full moon out. You did what was it? You did Guadalupe Peak, right?
Yes,
Right.
yes.
I did that in a full moon
Oh,
long
amazing.
ago. Yeah, and you could do it. Yeah, yeah. It was like weird. It was really kind of cool. But yeah, weather. Just don't die. Take the
Yeah.
necessary precautions not to die. You should be all right.
Yes, yes. And if you are on a budget, because it can get costly with the fee prices and so on, they have an annual pass that you can get for national park, and it's currently $80, and it will be for the year all the national parks that you can enter versus paying like $30 every time you go or whatever it is.
Right. Well, and depending on where you live, it's most likely the biggest expense. I mean, if you want to do no joke, I mean, the West in the United States is the best. All right. And
Yep.
so, but if you're in West Virginia, well, you got a flight and car and travel and all that other stuff. So there's nothing wrong with hiking in your backyards. There's plenty of state parks, even within the city. I mean,
Yeah.
they go out of their way to make pavements and trails, and there's nothing wrong. Like if you look at it, using bike paths and parks and everything, you could hike easily 30 miles if you want. You can hike clear across the Twin Cities and never touch a street. Um, but so you can hike. It's just yeah. Usually, if you want to see Canyonlands,
Hmm.
Grand Canyon, Glacier. These are remote places. It's going to cost you hundreds of dollars. And
Hmm.
so if you know you want to hit several national parks along the way, yeah, get your national parks pass. But I'll tell you another thing to save you money. Call ahead and make sure you can even enter to the darn park. Make sure you get, because a lot of these, oh, I'd love to do Templo Cirenao. Well, you can't because all the lottery tickets had been sold.
Hmm.
So there is, under Trump, a couple managerial changes were made to the national parks. And so you want to make sure the park is open before you drive the
Yeah.
500 miles to get there.
Yeah. So what about hiking etiquette? What would you
Oh,
consider some hiking etiquette?
I just don't be a dick. There's not. I don't run into that many people. I would say
Mhm.
one thing: if you're in a, like for example, Phoenix. Phoenix is more or less a basin, but there are individual mountains that pop out, like Black Mountain, Camelback,
Mhm.
Piesta, and so they're very highly trafficked. Don't be one of these young douchebags that has your loud essential boom box playing. People don't want to hear your crappy 20 and 17 music. We just don't want to hear it. Get out of people's way when they're coming down because they're the ones that got to maintain their balance more. Uh,
Mhm.
I'm trying to think what else. It's just like being in public if you happen to see
Yeah.
people.
If
Um,
somebody, looks like they're struggling, maybe offer some of your food or
yeah.
water if they don't have
Well,
enough. Just
yeah. I mean, if
yeah.
they're starving and they were lost for 3 days and found you on the trail, yeah, help them out.
Yes.
But yeah, usually hikers are really nice people, and you're not
Mhm.
going to have any trouble. And then you'll most of my experience is you're not going to see anybody because so few
Mm.
people are going out.
Yeah, and if you do, stop, say hi. You might get some ideas on, if you're headed up the mountain, they can give you a little bit of, information of what to expect, maybe
Hmm.
weather-wise, temperature-wise, or how much further,
Or there's a
So
rattlesnake up there. Yeah, that's
yeah, yeah. So, don't be shy, don't be bashful, have conversations with people on the trail. A lot of times it's like-minded people enjoying that whole scenery.
mhm,
Yes,
yep.
yes. Okay, so let's plant some seeds for the audience and talk about some of our favorite places to hike ever.
All right. Favorite ever. I gotta whittle
Yes,
these down. There's
I
a
know,
lot
right?
of ever. Yeah, a lot of
Yeah,
ties for first place. So, I would say Angel's Landing is pretty cool.
and that's in
Uh,
Zion
that's in
National.
Zion,
Mhm.
right? And have you done it?
I saw it. I will be honest, that it threw me off, that little rope that you have to hang on to
The
and
chain
climb up
rope?
to. Yeah, so I didn't
Mm.
do it. I got to the base of it, but I was like, I'm not going to do that part. It wasn't for me. I was a little
Well,
like a little scared.
that's fine. That's probably ranked up there in the top three simply because of the variety. Zion is one of the most beautiful parks. So you're
Yeah.
just driving in this canyon. It's already beautiful. And then what you essentially do with Angel's Landing is you hike up to the top of the canyon and you go out on one of these essentially cliffs. It's like a pier that juts out into the canyon with 1,200 vertical drops on
Mhm.
both sides. And what
Mhm.
Lisa's talking about there is you go on the spine of this outcropping,
And it's
and
narrow.
it's narrow. It's like at its narrowest spot, I think it's about 4 feet wide, guaranteed death both ways. Um, but when you get out to the rest of the plateau of that cliff, you just got an amazing view of the I think it's called the Virgin Canyon or the Zion National Park Canyon. So that's one of my favorite. I would say one of my favorite to do locally here in Nevada is called the Gold Strike Trail, and that is by the Hoover Dam. So you exit for the same exit for the Hoover Dam, but you park by the highway and you follow this canyon quite steeply all the way down to the Colorado River, about maybe half a mile downstream from the Hoover Dam. And what I like about that is it's vertical. So there's ropes that you rappel down. It's not just you hiking. You're getting some upper body stuff too. And the canyon keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And then water starts to come out from the sides of the canyon. Now all of a sudden you're in this hot springs. They've dammed up the springs a little bit so you can swim in the springs if you like. And soon enough, get all the way to the Colorado River. And then right across is Arizona. And if you're good enough swimmer, you can swim to Arizona. It's cold, uh, and and then you get to go back up, and it's just as fun going up as it is going down because you get to pull up the rocks and all that, and you get to pull up on the ropes. Um, so that's that's one of my favorites. Another one of
What is
my
the name of
favorite,
that again?
Golden Strike.
Okay, that sounds
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, and it's the only one by the Hoover Dam of it.
Oh, okay.
It's the hike to do by the Hoover. There's other hikes, but that's
Is
the
it
one.
busy?
Yeah, it's pretty busy.
Mm,
If you go if you avoid weekends, you'll be all right. Uh,
that's a good tip
I,
too.
I really do want a recession again. I remember the times you just pulled up and you went, and now there's people, and of course they litter, and you
Yeah.
got to wait for people to finish the rope. Not everyone knows what they're doing.
Mm.
We need a good crippling recession where no one goes to my parks again. I just have free reign of
Well,
this
it's
thing.
probably coming. So,
I hope so. I hope so.
and that is
Another
another good tip where you talked about the litter. A lot of times when you're in the parks, it's pack in, pack out. Don't expect trash cans or places, or obviously don't litter.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Another one I really like, it's probably not as well known, is the Badlands National Park. And there's no
Mm.
particular trail, but I bushwhacked north south on the western remote area of the Badlands. What I like about that is the Badlands formation is a little bit different. When we see them in national parks, you usually see mountains and lakes, but there's herds of buffalo. The geology is really interesting. Not only will you see fossils and sometimes you'll find agates, but back in the day,
Mm.
the South Dakota Badlands was used as a bombing and Air Corps, Army Air
Mm.
Corps range. So you will find shells of 30 and 50 caliber machine gun shells occasionally
Oh,
out in the middle of
wow.
nowhere. Yeah, so it's different. Um, and then in Wyoming, I really like this one called Seven Brothers lakes.
Mm.
You hike up into the Bighorn Mountains, and there's 7 lakes that you can hike around, and then you go back. And that one's pretty neat because if you start in the morning, you'll cross this little stream, and then when you come back in the afternoon, what you don't realize is that all the snow had melted that afternoon, and now it's a raging river, and you got to precariously go across this one tree they felled to get across it. And if you fall, you will be washed out in the town, 20 miles down below. And that's a very beautiful hike. And then I've done so many. I'm trying to think. Canyonlands. I know the hike I want to do, but I didn't have the time to do it.
Hmm.
It's taunting me, it's mocking me and ridiculing me. But I know I'm going to really like that one. And then I'd say for just a good classic, but not impossible to do, uh, mountain climb, if you want to do an actual mountain, Hallett's Peak in Rocky Mountain National Park. That was not impossible. It's
Mm.
challenging, but it's not impossible because you go up to the spine of the Rocky Mountains. So you can see on the other side of Rocky Mountain National Park, you can see a town I believe is called Granby. And then on the other side, you see the lake. I forget the name of the lake, more or less straight down. And there's snow up there, and it's windy, and you climbed a real mountain when you did that one. And so those are just some of my favorite. But there's a lot, but plenty more.
Yes, yes. Have you ever been interested in the Appalachian that would require actual camping, because that could be weeks and months to go
Yeah, the
on that type
Appalachian.
of adventure?
I'm so spoiled in the Rockies and out west. I mean, I know the Appalachians are nice, and my uncle did do the Appalachian
Mm.
Trail,
Okay.
and he enjoyed it. I think it took him 2 months or something like that. And
Hmm.
I just, it's logistics. It's like you got to go there, and that's like
Right.
at least a day flight, and then you got to have someone drop you off if you want to do the whole trail. I'm much more inclined to do there's like a Mexico Canada trail on the
Mm.
west. But I'd honestly, if I'm going to put that much effort into it, I will probably spend 2 months in Moab
Hmm.
and just do Canyonlands, Arches, Horseshoe, all the other stuff in
Hmm.
East and South Utah before
Hmm.
I do the Smoky Mountains.
Yes, yes. And so you mentioned that the West is where it's really at for hiking, and there's something known as the Mighty Five of
Okay,
Utah. Let's touch on those. I know you
I
hit a
don't know
couple of
what
them.
85 of
Oh,
you.
the Mighty Five is Zion,
Hmm.
Bryce. Have you been to Bryce
I've
Canyon?
been to Bryce. Yep.
It's amazing. Capitol Reef,
All right.
uh, Arches, which
Yeah.
is near Moab, and then
Mm.
Canyonlands. They're considered the Mighty Five of Utah.
Okay, so are there 5 hikes you have to do in the Mighty Five
I mean,
or
there's
do you
tons
just
of
have to
hikes.
right? But is it just you have to visit them and you've seen the Mighty Five?
Yes, yes. If
Oh,
you're
okay.
wanting to do like a road trip and hit those 5 national parks, and they're all great for hiking.
Mm.
They're also now, because people know about them, they're very heavily populated. So definitely, if you could go on the off time, don't go summer, don't go weekends, would probably be your
Yeah.
best bet.
You want kids in school. That's what keeps them off my parks and my tree. The kids are in school. That's now one. I'll tell you for your audience, and one that maybe you haven't heard of.
Mm.
Vernal, Utah. It's not even a park. It's Dinosaur National Monument. And
Mm.
the reason they put up a park up there, a monument, is because they have, in my humble opinion, the best not in a museum collection of dinosaur fossils. There's an entire wall cliff that they found of multiple dinosaurs, brontosaurus, all the, and it's phenomenal. So it's worth going there to take a look. But this is where the Green and Yampa rivers meet. The Green River comes out of Wyoming, and the Yampa River comes out of northern Colorado by Steamboat Springs, and they merge. And it's just these jagged, straight drop cliffs. And I did I think it's called the Fish Line or something like. It's a very short hike, but you get to where the confluence. It's just beautiful and amazing. So if you're looking to avoid, Rocky Mountain National Park, Grand Canyon, uh,
The
whatever
big
else. I'm
ones.
sure. Yeah, the big ones. You don't want to do that, but you still want to see some amazing beauty. Take the
Mm.
time to drive out to Vernal, Utah, and go to the Dinosaur National Monument.
Mm. Is that in the southern or the northern?
It's kind of, you know how Utah has like that part of it
Oh
that
yeah.
Wyoming breaks into, that northeast quadrant is just south of that. Technically, the park goes a little bit into Colorado well, so it's on that what would be the northwest border between
Mm.
Colorado and Utah. That's where that would be.
Okay. So yeah, you did mention the Grand Canyon, and that is one place that I absolutely love. It's one of the seven wonders in the world, and
Mhm.
it is different than looking at the canyon up top with the tourist versus dropping down in the canyon and hiking across it, which I was able to do last year. I went from the North Rim to the South Rim, and I
Awesome.
joined a hiking club. So that's one tip I would give you. Maybe don't do it by yourself the first time.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm going to do it again this year, but the weather caused with the timing of my trip, the North Rim is actually closed. And
Mhm.
so I was like, okay, so now we have to do something differently. So now I'm just going to stay on the South Rim side and go down the Kaibab Trail,
Mhm.
which is like a 6,000 elevation drop down to Phantom Ranch, and then I'll come back up the Bright Angel Trail. So
Right.
sometimes you have to make adjustments, things happen. But the Grand Canyon is definitely one that I would recommend. And it can be dangerous. People, I think I read somewhere like 12 people die a year in the
Yeah.
Grand Canyon. I mean,
Yeah.
whether it's from a fall or from a heat stroke, dehydration. I mean, there's lots of different reasons, but yeah,
Yeah.
it can happen.
I have a hate relationship with the Grand Canyon because it
Tell me
hates me.
why.
Oh, dude, it's like it doesn't want me to hike it. I the first time I went, I was traveling and I didn't have time to do any hiking, so I just looked at it. Okay, that's fair enough. Fair enough, Grand Canyon. Fair enough. Second time I go, we're gonna hike it, but it was too early in the season. So on the plains and in the desert, it was nice and warm. But because the south rim is
Mhm.
on the south, that means the sun doesn't hit it. It's in the shade constantly. So it was icy and wet because the snow would melt, but then would refreeze at night. So you
Mhm.
can't go down 5,000 feet on ice. You had, and people who were doing it were wearing ice pick shoes to do it.
Mhm. Yep.
The third time I went, and just so you know, at least you probably know this, most people don't. The Grand Canyon is not conveniently located off the side of Interstate 40. You're on the interstate, and you got to drive another hour and a half to pretty much the Utah Wyoming border,
Yeah.
and then you get there. So this is, you really got to go out of your way to get there.
Mhm.
So I'm like, okay, here we go. I'm leaving early, gonna hike it. Da da da. I get there, it's fogged over. And I'm like, how is this? It just, and so I'm done with the
Oh.
Grand Canyon. I'm done with it. I'm not doing it. I let you do it. I am so pissed off at that park that
Oh
yeah.
man.
So if you are going to do it, check the weather.
Oh
Make
yeah.
sure the trails are not iced over. I mean, you
Mhm.
probably want to do it in fall to make sure
Mhm.
all the ice and the snow has melted. And then you got options. You go North Rim or South Rim. North
Mhm.
Rim is through Utah, but I would even say earlier in the season, the North Rim obviously melts first. But yeah, I'm glad you got to make it. It just disliked me very much. It was disagreeable with me.
Oh my gosh. So I live in Texas, and I would say we don't have mountainous beauty of like Colorado and some of these other states, but we do have two places that I would recommend for the audience if they're coming to Texas, and that would be Big Bend National Park. And again, the logistics in getting there is far because now you're going all the way down to like the Mexico border, but there's something beautiful and just raw around that area. It's very desert-like, the Terlingua, and just it's a really, really beautiful national park. And then the other one, which we were talking about before we started recording, was we've both been to Guadalupe National Park, which it has grown in popularity. People are starting to find out about it more, and so you're seeing a lot more people head to it. But it's another really nice trail. What was your experience at the Guadalupe National Park?
Well, it was different because I went in a full moon and it was
Yeah.
really fun. I was with a girl, so it's kind of cool too. But yeah, you're hiking up and it's a different experience under full moonlight.
Mm.
And it's longer than you think. And gosh, this is like over 20 years ago.
Oh, wow.
I enjoyed it, yeah. But yeah, I was living in Minneapolis at the time. Yeah, it's a drive. It's
Yeah.
a drive. You better, and I don't even know what the lodging situation is now. We were sleeping in the car just to,
Oh.
avoid paying for hotels. But
Mhm.
if you want a good night's rest, which you probably do, I'd try and find a hotel around the area and then
Mhm.
hit it in the morning and make sure it's not too hot because you are in the southern part of the United States. But yeah, and for those of you who are in Texas and you don't have the time to say drive all the way to Colorado or New Mexico even, that's a no joke hike. It's like what, 9,200?
It's 8,751 feet.
Okay, well
Yeah, it's the
that's not a
tallest
joke.
point in Texas.
Hmm. Yeah, and so
Yeah,
you'll get your exercise for the day. You can have a cupcake after that.
for sure, for sure. Is there any place outside the United States that you would like to hike or
Oh,
have
at the
hiked?
Canadian Rockies. I could get lost in I did a
Mm.
motorcycle ride between here and Alaska, and yeah, the Canadian Rockies, the Canadian Cascades. Uh, it's just unreal. The mountains are more jagged. They're obviously more north, so they get a lot more snow. So it adds to the dramatic visual effect of the mountain ranges up there. I, unfortunately, I don't have the life expectancy to do all the hiking I would like to do. And if you got to drive to Canada, and it's lengthy, but there are. I get depressed thinking about the hikes I'll never be able to do in Canada because there just isn't the time. But that
Yeah.
would definitely be something where me and my girlfriend one of these days we're going to take a full summer off on the motorcycle and go out to Revelstoke and Panorama and Lake Louise and Banff and Jasper, and that's the Rockies. That says
Yeah.
nothing about the Cascades that go all the way up into Alaska. So
Mm.
yeah, you could definitely get lost in Canada.
Do you have any desire for something like a Mount Everest or a Mount Kilimanjaro or something like that?
No, I'm only a poor corrupt official. I'm not that crazy. Well, you know the type, the ones who could do ultra marathons and they're Ironmen and they can live above 20,000 feet. That's not me. I want it to be more of like a daily routine, and you need a psychology for that. You need to like really
Mm.
want to run an ultra marathon. And
Mhm.
this is not throwing shade on those people either. I just don't have that personality. I like like a regular. I got a particular schedule where it's like 3 days at the gym, 3 days hiking interspersed. And you
Mm.
can't hike 12. Well, you can hike 12 miles every other day, but you'll exhaust yourself. But I do about 6 to 10 on my hikes. Usually there's an elevation gain. Sometimes I got these short little 3 milers that I do if I have to, some kind of work obligation
Mhm.
or something like that. But to do that's a full time job training for McKinley or Everest or K2 or anything else like that. So,
Mhm.
and also I don't like the cold. I do not like snow. I am not. It's good. Okay, I did Griffith Peak. Okay, there's snow up here. This sucks. Let's go back down now.
Yeah.
So I'm more of the type to do canyons or canyoneering, more of Zion,
Mm.
Utah, Grand Escalante, Moab,
Mhm.
than I would be, whatever the tallest peak is in Canada or something like that. I probably eschew that.
Yeah. So you've lived both South Dakota and experienced that hiking, and you've also
Mhm.
lived in the Vegas area and its surrounding area.
Right.
Which do you prefer and why?
It depends. It's really seasonal, very seasonal because of
Okay.
the drastically different climates. Vegas, it's like, do you prefer whiskey or chocolate milk? They're just not in the same. They're different things
Okay.
because Vegas is definitely desert hiking.
Desert, yes.
Yeah, and man, I love it. I love go hiking out there, and there's mountains if you want them, and I've gone up a couple. But I really all of a sudden you find this spring that no one knew about. There's like
Mm.
water actually hidden away in this crevasse in the desert. Um, and then
And you're so close to, like, shooting up to Utah or shooting over to
oh yeah,
Arizona or California. Um,
absolutely, two
one of
hours
my
every
favorite
direction.
one of my favorite places is Death Valley in Badwater in that area.
Really,
So cool.
for hiking?
Yeah. Say again?
For hiking?
Yeah, just like, walking around in that area. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Oh wow, that's true desert walking. I usually like to see a cactus or something, but yeah. So, but
I
that's
like cactuses too.
yeah. Well, that's Nevada hiking. So that's one. But then South Dakota, there's more trees, is more akin to Colorado.
Mhm.
South Dakota doesn't have a lot of mountains. There's just a little part of it that has some hills in it, and
The
there,
Badlands.
yeah, the Badlands is a Badlands formation. I enjoy that. But South Dakota's more trees, some canyons. The mountains aren't that high, but I live out there more for also motorcycle riding and agate hunting and fossil collecting and all that. And then
Mhm,
if I want real mountains, the Bighorns is just an hour and a half, 2 hours away over in Wyoming. So it's not as certainly not as dry.
mhm,
The mountains are not as dramatic as Nevada or Colorado or anything else, but
mhm.
it I still very much thoroughly enjoy the Badlands and the
Yes.
Black Hills. Yeah.
You get more of a winter, more cold and snow there than you
I
would.
don't. Then I come to Nevada. That's when I'm like,
Oh,
oh, that white stuff is coming out of the sky, and I hype on a very cheap Allegiant flight one way to Las Vegas, and then there's no snow down here. It's like, oh, this is
oh,
nice.
nice, nice. So the two other states that I would put on this list, and again, it's seasonal, would
Mhm,
be Colorado and Montana because
mhm.
they're just absolutely beautiful in what they offer. But I would do those more in the summer. I wouldn't do that in the winter.
Right. No, you don't want to. I mean, the roads and the
Mhm.
passes are closed. I would say with
Terrible.
Colorado, most people, their experience would be you fly to Denver, Rocky Mountain National Park is right there. I would say the
Colorado
Uncompahgre,
Springs,
Colorado,
Pikes
right
Peak.
on that I-25 corridor there. Yeah. Um, but I would say lesser known is the Uncompahgre Mountains on Highway 550 between Ouray and Durango.
Mm.
Those are just as dramatic, and I would say more fun. And the towns nestled within are fun to stop by. I hate not Ouray. Telluride. Don't bother going to Telluride. Do
Too
not
touristy?
bunch of snobby, snooty, rich self. Oh my God, are we amazing? We're in Telluride. We're just so much better than everyone else in the world. Like, no, don't go to Telluride. But that mountain range that it's in, I did Engineer Peak. That was pretty cool.
Mm.
But and then you're right abut Moab, and
Mhm.
oh, what's the town in Colorado? Gateway, where it
Mm.
switches from mountains to canyons, and so that's a very interesting area as well.
Yes, yes. I had done a, hike up Pikes Peak a couple years ago,
Mhm.
and I couldn't find anybody to do it with, and this is another good tip because you might wanna go on these things, and I was able to find a hiking guide that I hired for the
Oh,
day, and he
all right.
hiked with me, and he took me up, and he had, like, all the training and expertise and had done it a bunch, and it was a really good experience, so it's, Hike for Life. If anybody wants to check it out, it's
Okay.
in Colorado Springs.
Out of curiosity, now, did you go straight from Texas to hiking Pikes Peak?
Great question, because
Yeah.
I am a flatlander.
You're a Flatlander.
I'm at
Hmm.
0 elevation in Houston, and so when I was training for that hike, I didn't have any preparation, so I flew in about 5 days before, so I didn't even
Right.
have a chance to acclimate. They would say try 2 weeks before, but,
Right.
the first thing I did when I got off of the plane was I went up those, steps, um, Mana Manitosa Springs? It's that
Oh, is this in
mile-long.
Colorado Springs?
It's in Colorado Springs. It's a 1-mile hike of steps.
Okay.
And I think it's called Manitosa Springs or something like
Okay.
that.
All right.
And so I got off the plane and I went and I did that hike. And so I'm like, I got to get acclimated. And so yeah, I was doing pretty good. I didn't really feel the elevation until I got to about 12,000 or 13,000 feet. But
Mhm.
Pikes Peak, for those that don't know, it's a 14R. It's what they consider 14,000 feet. And yeah, it was an awesome experience.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like you it sounds like you're pretty good to begin
I mean, I
with
was in
that applicant.
shape. I don't know if I was in mountain shape, but I wasn't going to let that stop me.
Right. Well, I've had people, myself included, I'm good up to about 12,000. Then it doesn't
You
matter
start
how
to,
good a shape I'm in. Yes. And I know it hits people differently. Like I have a friend, he flew to Denver and immediately started getting sick. He didn't hike or
mm,
nothing. It's just he was 5,200 feet up and he was already getting ill. So, for those of you who are flatlanders like me and Lisa
yeah.
are, yeah, you got to acclimate, especially if you're going to go above 10,000 feet. And because it will ruin a perfectly good hike. And you're like, why am I so weak? What happened? It's like, it's not that you're weak. You ate just fine. It's like you're at 13,000 feet and there ain't no air. And that's why
Mhm.
you usually get a pounding headache, or at least I do.
Yeah, you might feel a little lightheaded, maybe a little bit once you're getting up there. But yeah, people get like air sickness or stuff like that. You have to be really careful with. And one of the ways to treat it is to go down. If you start feeling
Yeah.
that, then just kind of retreat and see if you can recoup. And but hiking 14ers, that's a whole culture. These 14,000 peaks that are very popular in the state of Colorado.
Mm.
We don't have any of those in Texas, but I realize that's a whole niche culture of people
It's
that
like
are.
CrossFit. It's a cult. These
Yes, it
people, these
is.
14ers. And I knew this one girl. She was the most unassuming, sweet, like, oh, she's going to make a great grandmother someday. Well, I find out she was like a combat vet in Iraq and she lived in a town called Copper Canyon. And this psychopath did 14 14ers in 14 days, a 14er a day. And I'm like,
Wow.
huh? What? But yeah, she was lit at Copper Mountain, I think is 9,000 feet. So she was acclimated already. But to do 14 14ers 14 days in a row,
Yep.
it's insane. But yeah, there's some freaks of nature out there when you start going to the
Yep.
hiking world for
Well,
sure.
that's just like that 50 states, 50 marathons in 50 states in 50 days. Like that's a whole thing.
Okay, yeah, it's those people. Those
Yeah,
those weirdos over there that I'll never be a part of. It's those people over there. Right, right.
yeah. They're definitely wired a little bit differently, I think. So are there any other favorite hiking spots that you would recommend?
Um, I have not explored it a lot, but I would strongly recommend for those of you, if you get the time, the Cascades in Washington
Mm,
State are absolutely beautiful. There, it's a lot more water and waterfalls.
mm,
Um, I did a peek. My buddy TJ Martinell, he's an author. He used to live in a town called Leavenworth. And honestly, that's just a great idea. Just go park yourself in Leavenworth for 2 weeks and just do all the hikes out there.
mhm,
They're not as high. I think they're only about 9,000 feet. Mount Rainier is a volcano, so that's much higher. But if you want something that you're probably likely to not get altitude sickness, but you like a lot more foliage and greenery, the Cascades are definitely something you definitely want to check out. And I've
mhm,
only done a handful of hikes within a 20-mile radius of the Leavenworth area, but
mhm,
it goes all the way up into Canada. It goes all the way down south, down towards Yakima and the Oregon border. And just, well, driving, that's a problem you're going to face. Is you'll be driving someplace and you'll have
mhm.
this destination in mind, but you're going to see like 20 different things you'll want to hike along the way. So if you have the time and if you ever find yourself in the Washington State area, I definitely would drive Highway 2. Drive up Highway 2, Leavenworth, and just grab yourself any old hikes around there. You'll be very happy.
Yes, yes, and so I hope we planted some seeds, give some ideas, and obviously people can, like I said, it's at your fingertips. Just go online. You can see all kinds of resources available to you to start your hiking journey. And it is a journey because, if you are blessed with 90, 100 years, this is something you can do in old age. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to stop. That's one of the things that I like about hiking. I plan to do a lot of hiking in retirement. So, it behooves you to spend a little time to kind of look into these things and see them as an option, for how you're going to spend some of your free time.
Mhm. Yeah, and I would also add to it. I know we've been talking the west side of the country. You can still hike. You don't have to be going up all these mountains. Just get out and go walk around. And if
Yeah.
you could get to the point you're walking 10 miles every other day, when you get out west, you'll actually be able to avail yourself of these really cool hikes. So don't let the fact that there isn't a mountain in your backyard, you live in Indiana, stop you. Do it now and start making some plans to come out west.
Yep. Yep. For sure. So we talked about a lot of things today. We talked about some hiking tips. We talked about some benefits of hiking. We planted some seeds on places to go. And I love that you pointed out maybe avoid some of the popular places. Go find some of these less walked on, less populated. They're just as good at gyms. So definitely look into that. Are there any like final thoughts that you would like to share about hiking?
For younger people, or maybe not younger people, maybe just starting out and budgeting will be an issue.
Yep.
I could not recommend enough, because this is how I did it, is sleep in your car. A lot of people are doing van life and all that now, and that is probably going to be the biggest hurdle for you to get from point A to point B. And I would recommend, like, yeah, it's going to be lodging, so bring a tent if you'd like, but if you can, get yourself a van or maybe something with a flat or something that you can actually sleep in, and do it. That was my biggest hurdle, was finances back when I was younger, and I finally said, "F this! I'm going to got a hatchback, slept in it, and go." And you will be so happy that you did that. And then you'll, just so you know, you'll be addicted. This is something you'll do for the rest of your life. So if you got kids, I don't know, maybe you could sell them into slavery or something, get rid of them so it doesn't interrupt with your hike. Maybe you're married, I don't know, you better come with you. Okay, you got to hike with me. But if once you do it, you'll be like, it will change your life planning, because like, this is so cool and it's so beautiful that there's no drawbacks, absolutely none to it.
Yes, yes. Where there's a will, there's a way. And that's what this comes down to. Don't let money be a barrier. Just get creative, get imaginative on how you can accomplish these types of travel goals and hiking goals. Yes, yes. Well, very cool. Well, thank you, Aaron. I appreciate you coming on my channel today.
Well, thanks for having me, Lisa. One day we will go for a hike. One day you'll be over here, and we will go for a hike.
Okay, I'm going to hold you to that. That's awesome. I would love that.
Just go easy on me.
Absolutely, absolutely. I might bring an extra set of hiking poles for you.
Thank you. Oh, good. Hiking poles.
Awesome, awesome. Well, if you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and share, and leave a comment down below or a question. Maybe even Aaron might look at this video later and comment on there. I do want to say one more thing before we go. And that is a official YouTube thank you, Aaron, because I am very small YouTuber. Thanks for even like reading my email. You wouldn't believe how many people
Why
just
would
like,
I read your email?
Well, people ignore your invites and stuff.
Oh,
and
okay.
I appreciate you giving me a boost to my channel, because I was
oh, that's right. You got up to 1,000, didn't you?
yes.
Yeah,
And I know I got some Aaron Clarey subscribers. So thank you all for coming on my channel and subscribing.
Are they behaving themselves? Are they?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I got to
As far
worry
as I
about
know,
that
yeah.
sometime. Yeah.
But it does, but I'm very thankful for that, because you didn't have to do that. And I would definitely, pay it forward by saying, anybody that's my subscriber, go subscribe to Aaron Clarey.
Right. Well, you just owe me a hike. How does that? And a Gatorade for the hike. We'll call it.
Okay.
We'll call it even.
Okay. Someday. Sounds good. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, guys. Thanks for watching.